Welcome to the Agenzia podcast. My name is Martin Curry. I'm one of the agents that works with our principal here, Anthony Spagnola. How are you, Anthony?
Good, thanks. How are you, Marty?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome to Agenzia, episode number 2. Now, Anthony, you shot a podcast a short time ago with the boys from your inaugural podcast with the boys from the Paramount Group. As a result of that, we had enormous amounts of feedback in relation to first-time buyer grants and opportunities and so on. So that's going to be the focus of this very short podcast today. So how are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Beautiful afternoon here. Now, when I started working for you, obviously a lot of people in the Macarthur region in this area know you or know of you and certainly know your family. I always knew you as Mr. Western Sydney, despite the fact that those people that I knew who had dealt with you had bought property in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and some in southeast Queensland, but still that stigma, I guess, that name of Mr. Western Sydney is attached. I never understood why until recently. And of course you own Macarthur Grange Golf Course, which is where we're filming now.
The family
right behind us. Family owned, you don't own it personally. You're not that lucky.
I'm still working.
If you owned it, I'd have a heliport about 50 feet behind us. maybe soon.
Why not?
So what's the story of Macarthur Grange Golf Course? How did your family come across this property?
It just happened through a partnership. We knew the previous owners and we were helping them with some planning proposals back about 20 years ago. However, one of the partners back then was sort of getting on in age, and so decided to sell us the property. We already had an intimate knowledge of the property, so we thought it was a good opportunity. However, we're looking to subdivide from even back then, and with time it's getting closer. We've just lodged our DA rezoning application 2 weeks ago, so we're sort of hopefully there this time. Awesome. That plans for 63 larger rural living lots, so we've gone with something that's still sort of green friendly, I guess, and keeps the contour of the land and nothing above the ridge line. So the council seems quite positive in their feedback with that approach. However, years ago we were looking for higher density, but just wasn't what the council were after.
Sure, but it does lend itself to the expertise you have personally, and certainly your broader family, because 20 years ago there was a little bit of growth, certainly in the Macarthur region. Campbelltown hadn't seen its boom. But of course, you guys sensibly invested in the area, knowing back then what was to come. And of course, Western Sydney is not what it was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. The developments either side, this was all rural farmland. You would have had cows there.
All the surrounding areas are already developed. We sit in the Campbelltown Council. However, the fence line is the boundary for Camden Council. On the other side of the fence line, we've got development already subdivided by Mirvac. So it's just that's the difference between the two councils, I guess. So one's pro-development and Campbelltown's been a little bit more conservative.
And off to the western side, even if you took us for a tour in one of the golf buggies, you took us for a tour right up to the western side of the boundary, and that's a Mirvac development on that side. Is it on Gregory Hills Road, is it?
Yeah, towards the end, yeah, there's a road that goes through that sort of connects to Gregory Hills Drive. So Mirvac has done to a certain point. Then there's a further parcel of land that I believe Mirvac will be doing a further development, about 100 acres at the back as well.
Yeah, and of course we're situated right next door here. You can't see it unless Domenico sort of pans around. Certainly if you're listening to this as an audio, you won't be able to see it, but it's what looks like a 3 or a 4-story clubhouse. It's got a full function centre on the eastern side, or that's the northern side over there. Yeah. So it's a beautiful property, but it does lend itself to the expertise that you have in the property market and you've grown up with. Obviously, Agenzia is well known and certainly does an extraordinary amount of good to those people that come and seek your services. But you are well and truly connected to the Macarthur region, thus the Mr. Western Sydney tag you seem to carry around with you. Now, moving on from that, we were going to talk about the first-time buyer opportunities, home builder, and so on. And certainly, you have a lot of opportunities here in southwest Sydney, in the Macarthur region, the broader region. But it also extends further north than southeast Queensland, and everything else. But we will reintroduce, for the sake of doing so, some of the properties you have here in the southwest, if that's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, excellent. Now, had an enormous amount of feedback from the first episode, people talking about the qualifying criteria for various home builder grants and so on. So we've got some details in front of us. If you're watching this on video, we have to partially apologise for the use of microphones. It's only because it's been the product has been released as a podcast as well, and make it a little bit more easily available. Let's talk about the qualifying criteria for home builder. But first of all, what is home builder? It's a very new initiative. It launched on the 4th of July.
Yeah, it's a scheme that has been come about, obviously, due to the current climate with COVID. So the government has they're seeking to stimulate the economy, and the best way to do that is through creating jobs. And the building sector is one of the largest, or the third largest industry, which makes up 9% of the GDP. So in the last calendar year, there was 110 new homes built. 110,000, sorry.
That's better.
110,000 new homes built. So, look, it's not just the build that actually flows into the economy, but there's when you build a new house, you might want furniture, you might want home entertainment systems, you might want blinds. So it's not just the actual build itself that is contributing back or being pumped back into the economy, but it's all these extra factors as well.
So what does home builder actually provide to a client?
It provides 25,000 incentive or grant in the way of a grant to if you're building a home up to 750,000, or you're doing a renovation from 150,000 to 750,000, then you're eligible. You don't have to be a first home buyer. It's just it's a new build incentive.
Right now, one of the things that attracted me towards your business was your business's social responsibility. You guys invest enormous amounts into various charities, and you look after people, and that drew you, I guess, towards the NDIS SDA space, where through the SDIA you facilitate the accommodation of those people that have some sort of disability, and through their plan qualify for government-sponsored housing. And we'll have another podcast on that maybe next week. And I'm wondering, there are certain inclusions when you build a new home, and it's only because you're an expert in the NDIS SDA space. When you build a new home or a renovation to the livability of
just checking my mic.
Yes, we've had problems before, people.
Technical issues.
All right, so in terms of improving the livability of a home for someone that has is part of an SDA plan, may have some sort of disability, that definition means something very different to me. So can someone put in a pool for the purpose of rehabilitation or a sauna or something similar?
My understanding is that under the way the current grant is worded, that it's not applicable due to it improve. Like as you said, a pool could improve the livability for a participant that has a disability. However, it's not under the new build grant currently. However, in saying that, there's every likelihood that it would be covered under their NDIS plan.
So it's probably a good idea if you're in that situation, since we have a lot of NDIS clients, it's worth them just giving you a call, and you can make the
definitely
the necessary
connections.
Yeah, whatever the word is I'm looking for. But of course, for you and I, building a new home, we can't put in a swimming pool.
No, definitely not. And anything that is seen as a luxury upgrade, I guess, as opposed to something that improves the livability.
But it's a fuzzy definition, isn't it? like the livability. To me, a cinema room, with a projector down the back on a 40-foot screen improves the livability of my home for me.
That's how I like to live as well. Feet up.
But is that livability? Is where do we? Again, I guess you have to make inquiries specifically direct to the government, and they make the determination. Am I right there?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that would improve the livability, a theatre room, I guess, or an extra bedroom. But yeah, there's a few grey areas, I guess, that need to be explored.
I see a lot of grey areas, but and it's a new program, so the government's still trying to figure this whole thing out. So let's go through. We've got our papers,
our cheat sheet
in front of us for the purpose of the home builder. So it's eligible owner occupiers, so it can't be a investment property.
Yeah, it's only for owner occupiers. So definitely not for investors or someone that's already owned a home.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. If it's a new build, you do qualify even if you have been a first home buyer.
Yeah, that's right. Anybody qualifies. So new builds or substantial renovations. And the criteria. I'm just going to run through these really quickly, and then we'll touch on any if we need to. So person 18 years of age or older, and that includes an Australian citizen. Now you need, let's talk about the income. 125K, 2018 to 2009 tax return for individuals, 125K. And what's the figure for couples?
200,000 for combined annual income for couples.
All right. Now, construction must commence
within 3 months of the contract date. So, look, it's a little bit tricky because there's limited registered land out there. So you have to get land that will be. The deadline is the 31st of December. So you need to have registered land and a build contract in place and work commencing within 3 months of that date.
Act quick, people. And the contract itself has to be entered between the 4th of June 2020 and 31st of December 2020. So the contract itself can be entered right up until essentially New Year's Eve this year.
That's right, yeah. So technically, I think if that's the case, you'd have to commence building by the end of March 2021.
Now, this is an interesting one. Principal place of residence where the property value does not exceed 750K and that's for new purchases.
Yeah, then if you got a renovation, it's the house has to be valued at no greater than 1.5 million.
Who makes that valuation? Because again, that's one of those fuzzy areas. If I go and get a valuation from one guy, it's going to come back as 1.4. If I go to someone else, it's going to be 1.6. So can that be arbitrated in any way?
I would say that's another grey area, but look, you got the general valuer who, for land tax purposes, so whether they go off your rates notice to see the value of the land, or I'm not too sure about that, but we can find that out. And
it's a principal place of residence. So again, there's a guy I know down south here in Tamworth, down near Picton, who has a fish and chip shop, and he operates it for 6 months every year and then hands over to another family for 6 months every year. So his principal place of residence is split between two. I guess there are a lot of fuzzy areas, but it's easy probably to navigate that space. All right, so it's said to cost the government $680 million.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's certainly a lot of money, but it's an incredible incentive just at the moment when we have the first home loan deposit scheme for first home buyers and the first home owners grant. An additional $25,000 contribution to a new build is extraordinary. It's unprecedented.
Never seen before.
It's absolutely unprecedented, and that leads us on to the first home loan deposit scheme, which is an ongoing scheme. It's I don't remember when it started, but
2016.
2016 for the first home loan deposit scheme.
That's right.
All right, and that's managed by the National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation, so NHFIC, and details are available nhfic.gov.au, and that's the Commonwealth entity or the body that manages property federally. And what is that scheme?
Essentially, it's a scheme that's obviously designed to help first home buyers get into the market. Essentially, it's for first home buyers that don't have the 20% that's usually the initial deposit required to purchase. If they don't have that available, usually there'd be LMI, which is loan mortgage insurance, on any shortfall below that 20% deposit. So in this case, if you have as little as 5% deposit, you are able to get an affordable loan through the scheme. So essentially, if you've got 5%, for the extra 15% that is required, you will not be up for any LMI. The government will essentially underwrite, or be guarantor and underwrite the loan for you for the extra 15% that you need for the deposit with the lender.
Yeah, there are lenders that support borrowing, obviously up to different LVRs, which is a loan to value calculation. So if you do have a smaller deposit, there are cases where the banks will support that. But LMI is payable, and it's thousands, and it can be
about 4%. So on a $500,000 purchase, it's about $20,000. It's 4 to 5%. So it's about $20,000 on a $500,000 loan.
Yeah, and that is normally rolled into the loan itself.
That's right.
And it becomes, you're paying off that over the course of the loan. If it's a 12, 20, 30, whatever year loan, it's compounded over time, so you're actually paying a lot more. So that scheme is actually an amazing one as well, because it makes property far more affordable than ever before. Now, obviously, you still have to qualify for a loan. You still have to have the borrowing capacity and be able to service that loan.
That's right. Yeah, if you've got over 20%, obviously the deposit available, obviously you don't qualify as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But it always comes back to serviceability. You have to be able to have the right income level to be able to pay the loans, because the banks will still value it like any other loan.
And the last point we'll make there, I guess, is the NHFIC will essentially guarantor up to 15%. So if you have a 10% deposit or 12 or 13% deposit, it is designed to facilitate and fast track your entry into the first home buyer market.
Yeah. That's right.
All right. So I'm just going to read off some points here off the note I made, which is it applies to an existing home, townhouse or apartment, house and land package, land and a separate contract to build a home, or off the plan apartment or townhouse. All right. And the criteria aren't that much different to home builder. So 18 years Australian citizen, the salary or the income applies, $125K for singles, $200K for couples. Yep. Interesting point on couples. What's a couple defined as?
De facto relationship or a married couple.
So siblings can't enter, because often in the finance space you have a brother and sister who can't afford a home by themselves. They come in, but this incentive does not apply to those people.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
They'll have to go to the first home loan deposit scheme managed by their parents instead.
That's it. wait for a little kickback from the olds.
Yeah. And obviously the important thing is there, it must be owner-occupied properties. It's not for investment purposes. So it is to get people into their first home. All right. I do have a couple more points here I've made on this paper. What are they? Okay, there's price caps. Now, this is super important. This is probably, if we're going to make one point known, this scheme only applies for properties of what value? Do you know off by heart yet?
The scheme? Up to 750,000.
700.
Oh, sorry, 700 in New South Wales. Every state is different. That's correct.
Yeah, every state is different.
Because there was designed very, like as you mentioned before, was designed very similar to the new builder grant. So that is 750, but it's a little bit different in each state.
So New South Wales 700K, and in rural areas 450K. Queensland 475K is the upper limit, and 400K for more rural areas. Now, defined as capital cities, the government website goes into the definitions there. So if you're interested in those, give us a call and we'll provide further information. The interesting thing there is 700K in New South Wales and 475K in Queensland. It speaks volumes to the affordability of housing in states, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, especially, as you said, Mr. Western Sydney gave it a title. It's not self-proclaimed.
Sure. It's a bumper sticker on his car.
Yeah, get eggs thrown at me. So yeah, as in Western Sydney, that's very affordable. You can get something for $750, especially around the Campbelltown and Camden councils. Also, that's in the southwest, in the northwest as well. It's there's still good opportunities around that price point. However, it's a little bit more pricey than the southwest.
Yeah, that's right. And we will introduce one of the projects we've got in the southwest very shortly. 27 lenders are participating in that program, by the way. That's the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme program. CommBank and NAB are two of the bigger lenders. So it's really the second and possibly third. I don't really remember the remaining 25, but certainly there's other tiered lenders that provide that service. Now, of interest here is obviously you provide the property service to law enforcement and military personnel and doctors and nurses and whatnot through your program at police.com.au, which is, again, speaks to the social responsibility that Agenzia has to those people that provide a service. And as a former police officer and as a former firefighter, I appreciate what you do for these people. And the reason I mention that is the other lenders do include the Firefighters Mutual Bank, the Police Bank and QBank, which are three banks that generally claim to specialise in that market. So you've got access to those through that program you run via that standalone website at police.com.au as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, we've got a brokerage arm and, as part of our team as well, who are right around all the lenders and what's available. And it's definitely a good opportunity that side as well to help some people out.
Yeah, I could not speak highly enough of your mortgage team. I set up one of the largest independent brokerages in Australia. I started that in 2005 and got out about 2016. And I've dealt with a lot of brokers, a lot of banks, a lot of and your team is well and truly just the most capable of teams that I've ever dealt with in the country, just without question. So you're very fortunate there, and your brokers are also, at times, not in all cases, but sometimes qualified as financial advisors, which also helps.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that leads us on to the First Home Buyer Grant, which is a third program and incentive provided to third-hand buyers. It's a third to home loan buyers. It's been around forever. Tell us what that is and what it does.
So what was that?
The First Home Buyers Grant. You weren't listening. You just phased out, didn't you?
Yeah, sorry, mate. There was someone walking past. Bad attention span.
We are here at a working golf club, so we've. I think we had some golfers behind us before.
Yeah, I was watching out for a golf ball flying, and no one caught four.
About a minute ago, I tried to draw your attention to a couple of kangaroos that were sitting up there just watching us. Yeah. And this whole area we're sitting on, by the way, is covered in kangaroo poo.
Well, you were scared to sit down around here. Doesn't smell, fortunately.
Okay, so the First Home Buyers Grant.
So that's the other grant that's available by the state governments.
Yeah.
So in New South Wales, which is where we're located, it's $10,000. We help a lot of investors and first home buyers in southeast Queensland as well. So it's $15,000 in Queensland, and every other state has its own rate as well.
Yeah. So you may qualify for a claim through the applicable state's first home owner grant if your newly constructed home or substantially renovated home has a total value less than, I haven't got the figure here, what is it?
Total value in New South Wales, it's less than 700,000 or 750,000.
It must be 600,000. I'll say that again.
Sorry.
So, newly constructed home or substantially renovated home has a
yeah.
total value less than 600,000. So it's the next point, I think.
Yep. And then land and building of any dwelling is so the house and land, for example, should be no greater than 750,000. So it's the same sort of criteria as that we mentioned previously for the home builder scheme grant.
Yeah, and the criteria are the same. I'll just run through these really quickly. Individual must be over 18, be eligible if not a first home buyer or have received the grant. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that sentence because it doesn't make sense. But must move in. This is important. Must move in within 12 months of purchasing the home and then live there for 6 months simultaneously, or continuously, I should say. Now, if it's a house and land, must move in within 12 months of project completion. Now, does that mean you can rent it out for 12 months?
No, you've got to live there for 6 months.
But if you have to move in within 12 months of a construction completion take place, you rent it out for 10 months and then move in for 6 months.
That's correct. Yeah.
So you can do that.
You can do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, if a member of the Australian Defence Force, you've got certain exemptions, and that's because you're out and about, touring, having your fun. But again, through our service at police.com.au, or certainly through Agenzia even, we're able to provide you with the appropriate information there as well.
Yeah.
So give Anthony a call directly because he manages that police project. And this lends itself. So we've just talked about 3. Is that a bat?
Crows.
We can't.
The crows are.
We can't record.
The crows are circling.
The kangaroos. This is bizarre.
Watch out for the snakes, like it's winter.
Yeah, Anthony did send me a picture of a snake on the driveway here into the property a short time ago, and we get them on my house as well. Yeah. And I'm going to talk about.
You were bitten by a brown snake. I thought you were.
I was bitten by a brown snake.
I thought you were just bluffing me to get out of it, catching up.
No, I still got the mark on my leg. I was reassured by the doctor who just brushed it off and said, "Oh, I've only had 2 brown snake deaths in the last 20 years or something." So
better not make it 3.
It's only most people in Australia have the capacity to get to the doctor quite quickly. So that's the downside of living on a property in Western Sydney. And we are, God knows how many snakes you've got in this property.
There's a lot.
When you're off the golf course, when you're on the eastern side as you move towards the Campbelltown end, it is like a jungle. You're a little. It feels like you're in Jumanji, the movie Jumanji. It's just these sheds everywhere, and you've got storage containers just hanging around. And
no, they're not just hanging around. They're used for storage. Yeah.
It's just so beautiful this side, and it's the other side. It's just disgusting.
We've had our office out here for about 5 years, so it's good to when you're having a stressful day just to walk out and see a bit of nature.
It is. An absolute beautiful spot, and it's just amazing. We're actually, it's just about to get dark here, so we probably should get through this. Now, you do have some properties available in southwest Sydney, and one of the projects we've been working on for a couple of weeks is in Mount Annan. And the reason I talk about this is because it is only about 10 to maybe 15 minutes from here, 10 minutes drive.
10, 12 minutes, yeah.
10 or 12 minutes. Their price point is positioned so first home buyers can take advantage of those 3 grants at the same time if they qualify.
Definitely. It's an off the plan project. Work has already commenced, so therefore you can. That's one of the criteria for the grant of the new build. That is. So the price point, most of them are priced from $595 to $635. Or 650, so it falls within that 750 buffer, and there's some that are slightly higher priced, up to 735,000. They're more duplex style as opposed to townhouses.
Yeah, it's worth noting, and the Mount Annan median price is about $740,000. That goes up and down and around like all prices do, and certainly in a Corona era market. It's impossible to know how prices will be affected in certain areas and so on. But these properties in Mount Annan, one of the things that drew me towards it as a potential investor myself into those properties is just the location is amazing. You've got what my wife likes to call the Golden Triangle, which is Coles, Woolies and Aldi, all within 2.5 minutes of each other.
Better make sure she doesn't get lost in the middle like the Bermuda Triangle.
She'd be lost in Aldi. Yeah. She likes Aldi at the moment. I went to Woolies for the first time last night in like 3 years because Coles is closer, and they're the same. Whatever has the cheapest Pepsi Max. Listening, Woolies?
They're going to go into a price war for you, mate.
Yeah, just to get my business. But it is amazing having those 3 properties. Now, within 4 or 5 minutes walk up the hill, you've got the Botanical Gardens, which is the largest botanical gardens, I think, in Australia.
Southern Hemisphere as well, I think.
It's Southern Hemisphere, and it is amazing.
Everything's the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere, though, I guess. What other places besides Australia are included in that?
The Southern Hemisphere, you kidding me?
No, I mean besides the islands and.
Oh, you've got.
Australia always has the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere.
I used to work as an airline pilot. You want me to rattle off all the countries south of the equator? It is an amazing area, but the botanical gardens themselves, obviously living near parkland and so on is important if you've got kids and if you've got a young family. To be able to have a recreational area, but these properties themselves include recreational areas because they're on a community strata, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And there's a big green space behind where it can't be built out. So essentially, if you're living in a community that's a shared community, to have that spaced with soccer fields and parks, as well as shared barbecue areas. I think there's 4 or 5 within the stage 1 alone. Then it makes a great community living.
Yeah, barbecue areas. If you had monkey bars there, that would be enough for my kids to want to live there. If they got monkey bars, that's all they need now.
We'll have a chat to Sunland and see what they can
do. We've got some at home though, so it's all good. Now, okay, the medium 5-year price. This is what I've been looking at and I've been working with at the moment. It's what I graphed out this morning, and this is the medium 5-year price for Mount capital growth for Mount Annan is 30.04%. That means nothing, does it? As a property strategist, now we're talking about this Mount Annan project. We wouldn't be talking about, because Anthony's a property strategist. He doesn't recommend properties. It's important to understand the difference between real estate agents, I guess, and a property strategist, someone that places you in property that returns a high yield or a positive growth or whatever kind of return that is consistent with your overall objectives. So you wouldn't be recommending this, and I certainly wouldn't be looking at investing if it wasn't a good property. And the fact it's great, plus ticks those boxes is important.
That's right. But you've got to look at the growth factors and what's happening, and get in before the market rises, I guess. So, as we know, there's billions being spent with infrastructure. You've got the orbital that's connecting all the highways, and you've got the new airport at Badgerys Creek that's within 15 k's of this side at Mount Annan. So, that's been fast tracked also, that project, the airport. So it's Aerotropolis. Yeah. So that's all these key factors, as well as population growth. Definitely a good reason why it would stack up as a good purchase.
It is the 10-year return, and I know you like doing 10-year projections and 15-year projections and so on. But even for Mount Annan, it was 5.9%, which isn't super high.
Look, sometimes you can definitely go in a hotspot where it's got astronomical growth like up front. However, after the first year or two, how's it going to perform? So
it's a short-term play.
It's a short-term play.
So a hotspot is only a hotspot. It's only worth investing in a hotspot before it becomes a hotspot, which is what a lot of our software systems do. Our internal proprietary systems look for emerging trends in the property market and tries to identify these things via our own AI.
Yeah,
it's tough. Yeah. So in terms of what notes have I made to myself here? Oh, I made the point about the long-term play, short-term capital growth. So. I've got a number of notes here, and we're not going to talk about all of them, only because it's getting dark and I'm getting cold and I'm scared of snakes. But there's the point here.
You've got to get to Woolies to get your Pepsi Max on sale.
Yeah, that's right. Well, see, look, I made the point here, and I was going to talk about it, but where I live in Leppington on 5 acres was valued at an unrealistic price for a number of years, and everyone was buying into Leppington, and that included the consumer housing market, and of course everything's died off, and certainly now it's died off even more. So we've had a lot of negative equity in those areas, but there are some areas around here that have just withstood the test of time, and they're reliable and predictable, and we can't foreseeably expect them to. And no one has a crystal ball, but certainly I like Annan as an investor more because of its security and safety. It's got a good return. Okay, return's not as high as a lot of the stuff you place people in, which is as high as like 12% stuff. We're talking 5.9% over 10. You've placed people in that returns 12%, 13% consistently year over year. So I did include that. Maybe we can defer that to the next podcast where we talk about a lot of the longer term plays and the strategy that people should employ. Yeah,
Definitely, yeah. More than happy to go into further detail. That might take us a while, so definitely
take us a long time.
Yep,
There's
yep.
a lot of information here because I do like the difference between a short-term play and a long-term pay, the short-term cash grab and so on. It all lends itself to, again, the particular strategy that people want to employ and they come into it with a desired outcome. Some people come into it and say, I want to invest in property because in 2 years I'm going to get married, and they don't want a house to live in. They want a property to improve and increase in price so they can afford their wedding.
Yeah, but also as a strategy, sometimes it's what's affordable now, and you may not see that as being your final home or your dream home. Just a matter of getting into the market, catching it before it gets that uplift, and then if you have, like, for example, you take advantage of these grants, 35k, automatically that's equity that you can use, as well as anything that you'll get on top of that with capital growth. So this is like, for example, this project in Mount Adam, it's got stage 1, so that's already nearly sold out. So they've got, that's stage 1 of 4 stages. So automatically stage 2 will be, the prices will go up, and if you're lucky enough to buy in earlier stages, you're going to catch that growth automatically just by the other values pushing your property up.
Yeah, and just to provide a summary on that, you're buying off the plan, you're buying at a good price,
you've got
3 types of grants, you've got a deferred payment, and you've got growth in the meantime.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's an ideal first-home buyer opportunity, but it's just priced so well. You know,
if that's not exactly for you, we've got other options in the area, like you mentioned.
Hundreds. But for any one person in the country, there's only one property that meets their brief perfectly. It's the mission is to go out and find that one perfect property that fits the brief of the client that comes to you and says, this is what I need. So
it's like your soulmate, is it, the property?
Well, it is. It's a property soulmate. Well, you have to, and that's the problem.
I remember you had an idea to create a platform called Property Tinder, which was essentially matching the right property to the right person. So
yeah,
that's what we can do.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because when people get into I can't even see ourselves on the video now. That has just gone completely dark. Maybe Don can flick the ND filter or something. But it's when you get into the property market, let's see if this works. We had a problem with this the other day on this camera. We had to. He has no idea what he's touching. Oh, he's got it. Oh, check it out.
There you go. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this because if you're getting into the Mount Annan market, for example, right, and buying off the plan, when you're a first home buyer, that is an emotional investment. It is your property equivalent of a long-term girlfriend.
It's a big commitment.
It is. It's an emotional commitment. It's an emotional decision. A lot of people like to make that decision themselves, and that's where you default to some of these, maybe inner city areas or the established built homes and all that.
Well, I guess buying off the plan is sort of like online dating, because it may not be as tangible because you want to see the end product. However, this project has a display unit on site, so you can see all the finishes and touch and feel, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. So look, I guess the summary is, whatever you need, whatever you're looking for, give us a call. We are not real estate agents. We are property advisors, and Anthony's a very high-end strategist. I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, you have got the background you are a licensed builder yourself. You are an accountant. You are a qualified real estate agent, obviously, but you're a broker. I don't think you've ever written a loan, but you're a qualified broker. You've got this enormous wealth of experience.
Property development's our passion as well. So it's we can definitely. That's another strategy that we can talk to our clients about if there's anyone interested, because there's certain ways outside of the scope of just normal sort of investment.
Yeah, so if people want to contact us, Anthony, the best number to give us a call on?
0414 745 684. That's my personal hotline. And look us up on our website, Agenzia, agenzia.com.au.
Yeah.
Or drop me an email, anthony@agenzia.com.au.
And Agenzia in Italian means Mr. Western Sydney, right?
It means agency, but maybe we'll have to rebrand it to Western Agenzia.
Don't say that. All right. It's getting so dark now and cold and miserable, and I swear I saw a couple of kangaroos' eyes out a couple of minutes ago, so we'll call it quits.
We've finally got this take done today. It's taken us a couple of days to reschedule things, I guess. So.
Yeah, the podcast will be an ongoing thing, guys, so we're going to try and make it once a week, and it will be a specific topic we talk about every week. And this week, for example, was the first home buyer program sort of made available to people. It is really only a cursory introduction, so give us a call if you want more information. And as is the case with any podcast and any general information, any education that takes place is purely coincidental. If you'd like more information and a personalised assessment, please give us a call or visit our website, or we're going to
come out to Western Sydney. I'll buy you a coffee.
Come out to this beautiful golf course here. Anthony will shout you a round of golf, won't you?
No worries.
Go throw in the cart.
Just use our promo code Agenzia.
All right, guys.
All right.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
It goes